Y'all ever played Football Manager? Because I've played Football Manager. I've played a lot of Football Manager. In fact, I sat down and added all these up because, this is kind of supposed to be a math series, and I found out that I have played a total of 1,031 hours of Computer Football Manager in my life. Yeah, I know. It's disappointing. But that's why I'm doing this. Now anyway, the reason why I bring this up is because I am talking about one of the most interesting stats around, in my opinion. XG, expected goals, in soccer. It's also used in ice hockey, but it's primarily used in soccer. And since the World Cup's coming up, and I've seen this stat a lot in projections, in how teams use their tactics, and in Football Manager, where it's always just there in the corner reminding me that my 4-2-3-1 Gegenpress isn't getting the job done. Thanks, me. That, might as well go into it, because it's going to be brought up quite a bit during the World Cup, and it's very complicated as far as I can tell. Which is exactly what this series is about. Hooray! Now, the thing when it comes to XG is that it's a lot harder to figure out exactly how it's calculated, considering it's almost entirely done using video tracking, so this is mostly going to be an explanation of what it is and how it's used. But either way, it should be interesting. You guys are going to learn more about soccer before the word football, even though soccer comes from the word association football, meaning that technically it's the same thing. And association football, anyway, was invented by the British, so the British can stop getting mad at us for calling us soccer. Anyway, it should be interesting. You guys are going to learn more about the sport, more about the statistic. Anyway, my name is Ian, this is ITP Media, and welcome to... Now, when it comes to XG, I think the first thing we have to do is define it, describe it, explain it to people who might not be interested in soccer and might just be getting into it for the World Cup. In which case, welcome to the fandom. It's a lot of fun. Pick a Premier League team. Pick Chelsea. I've been a Chelsea fan for about 7 years now, and I've regretted none of it. That's a lie. I've regretted quite a bit of it. Anyway, expected goals, or XG, is a statistical model used to assign a probability of scoring to every shot in both ice hockey and soccer. We're focusing entirely on soccer here again. I just want to remind you, it's in both sports. That way, hockey fans, such as myself, don't get mad at me for saying, oh, it's also in hockey. I know. I know it's also in hockey. I'm not talking about hockey right now. Now, by summing those probabilities across a match, a season, or just a general set of shots from a single player or multiple players, XG estimates how many goals a team or player would be expected to score given the chances created, regardless of whether those chances were scored or not. So basically it's saying, based on the amount of shots that you've taken, from where they were and who was taking them, these are how many goals you should have scored if every condition was perfect. But every condition isn't perfect, so you're not going to score every single one of them. Now, the thing about XG is that it's primarily calculated using video tracking and video software. So, again, like I said earlier, there's not much of a formula you can do without models and video, but you can do something. You can treat each shot like it's its own binomial trial. Binomial trial is basically a random experiment with two outcomes. You can either win, you can lose. There's a success and there's a failure. So basically every shot you can measure as a question of two probabilities. Probability of scoring and the probability of not scoring. So the probabilities that go into each factor include the skill of the player, past player performance, location of the shot. Obviously closer shots are going to have a higher success rate than than shots from farther away. Defenders, whether they're in the way, how close they are to you. Goalkeeper location, goalkeeper skill, every other environmental element, the length of the grass, the amount of wind, the pitch. But at its core, it's basically just a calculus equation or a probability equation. I thought I was done with calculus when I finished calc. I thought I was done with probability when I finished stats earlier this year. But I was wrong on both accounts. Welcome to Behind the Numbers. You are cursed. So our XG formula when we're not dealing with a statistical model or video review is XG is equal to the sum of n in a certain list of I, where PI is equal to our probability that the shot becomes a goal. N is equal to however many shots there are in the set. I is equal to whichever shot in the set we're dealing with. For any stats people that really, really, really want to get into it, often shots are assumed to be independent, in which case we find the variance, which is sigma I, probability of I, 1 minus probability of I, which is a pretty standard variance formula, especially because we're dealing with total goals, which is a different formula of G sigma I xi, which is literally just the expected formula for whether or not shot I results in a goal or not. And so, probability of scoring at least one goal from the set is this. I'm not 100% sure what this means, but that's the probability of scoring at least one goal. But in practice, independence is an approximation because shots within a match are correlated. For example, a rebound off of one shot leads to another shot. That's a direct correlation. But generally, shots are assumed to be independent as long as there's nothing directly tying them together, which is how independence works. Now, you may be wondering, Ian, what happened to your voice? What happened to your hair? Why are you wearing a different shirt? Where's the continuity in this? And to that I say, I'm filming this like 2 days after I filmed the first bit. I've been busy editing the first bit, and I lost my voice at the Knicks watch party yesterday, which meant I was in the city for the entire day. So I didn't really have any time to do any work on a video. Anyway, you may actually be wondering, Ian, how does it work with a historical model and statistical inputs? And yeah, that's a good question, so I'm about to explain that to you. So XG models are typically trained on historical data in which every shot that is in the model, like it gets processed, is labeled based on whether it has a goal or whether it resulted in a goal or whether it didn't result in a goal. And there's a whole lot of stuff that goes into that, like I said, distance and angle to goal, which body part you can hit it with, type of assist, whether it was a set piece or not, what was in the way. Like I said, every environmental factor you can think of still applies when it's in the statistical model. And then that's one way to do it. Another way to do it is using positional tracking data that's synchronized to the ball and to the player and etc. to give you some more like context of what's going on around the player, using such as, like I said, locations of the defenders and the goalkeeper with the aim of making the probability estimates better. So technically they are two separate things, but they're not, because you want to use both in order to get actual, better results. And so there's a number of techniques that can be used for this. There's, logistic regression, which is basically just, a statistical model that gives you the logarithm odds of anything in a linear regression timeline. So basically that means I don't know what that means.
A few moments later.
A logit is a function used in data analytics for the logistic distribution. The logistic distribution, I actually learned this one. It's a continuous probability distribution that is basically the linear, normal distribution that's like the typical bell curve, but it looks a little bit weirder. It's kind of heavier on each side. And that I can actually explain to you without looking at my notes. Anyway, so, and then there's other stuff just like machine learning. AI is hey, let's look at all these factors, cram them into the AI, and then have the AI figure it all out. That's a good use of AI. I don't like generative AI very much, if you can't tell. Southern skies. I should stop. I really need to stop. Now, you may be wondering, what does this mean for soccer? Sure, now you can tell whether a player can shoot or not, but how does this actually help? Well, there's a lot of things that can actually be done. So, tactics. So many tactics center around XG. They want to maximize XG, whether or not they actually convert the chances. Every single modern tactic, like Arteta, what Pep's doing at Man City, all of these, revolutionaries, or recent revolutionaries, are maximizing their XG. So, an offensive system. Like, if a team takes 20 shots, if those 20 shots have a low total XG, it indicates that tactical shape does not give out good shots. They're kind of just chucking the ball at the goal and praying it goes in. When rather, if it's a high XG, it means the system successfully lets players get off good shots, and that's kind of what you want. And then there's also XG against, XGA, and that's basically saying what is the XG that you have against you. How many goals are you expecting to concede? So if your opponents are constantly getting high XG shots, then you got to fix your defensive line. You got to fix your press. You got to fix all sorts of things. And so then, like, it's also great for scouting reports. Analysts can study where the highest XG comes from their opponents, whether it's inside the box, outside the box, from the left, from the right, from wherever. And then build a game plan to get to that area against that specific team. Like, for example, if going back to my favorite team, Chelsea, if Chelsea's playing Man City, like they did a couple, maybe last week at this point. Chelsea's playing Man City, and Man City concedes a lot of goals from inside the box. The manager can get something going and say, hey, we want to shoot a lot from inside the box because this is where the XG is highest. And the players are going to be like, yeah, we can do that. And also, like, not even on a tactics basis, on an individual player's basis. Comparing XG to, like, the actual amount of player goals scored can indicate whether a player is just in bad form, is getting unlucky, or might just be trash. So, let's sum it all up. XG is basically a measure of how many goals you're expected to score based on chances. It can be calculated either through a complex equation or through a series of linear regression models done by machine learning or by professional statisticians. And it's incredibly helpful in figuring out whether or not a player is good, how to actually use tactics, and how to get stuff done in an actual soccer game. I think that's it. So thank you guys very much for watching. I'm going to hope to get at least 2 more videos out by the end of this. They're probably going to be shorter than the baseball one. You're thinking about doing one on true shooting percentage and one on how much the draft combine stats actually matter, like whether or not, like how much a combine matters for draft stock, depending on the best combine performances and how much they rose, and how the worst combine performances, how much they fell. What stats actually matter in the combine? I just really want to talk about the NFL draft combine because it's such an interesting thing to me. Like, draft combines as a whole, it's just like, here, take all these dudes that play football and put them in a bunch of football unrelated drills that test general athleticism, and then put them in a football related drills that do test football, and have that kind of change all of your opinions. Anyway, enough about the future. Thank you so much for watching this video. Really hope you learned something, and that's going to do it for me. This has been ITP Media. I'm Ian. Thank you for watching. Good stuff. Let's go Knicks. Let's go Yankees. Yeah. Back-to-back bangers while I try to look for graphics and do some more copy pasting into my script. Goes down on my side of town. Lonesome feeling comes to my door and the whole world turns glue. I didn't take this kind of calculus. I thought I was done with calculus. What? I'm scared. I spend most every night